Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining me for another installment of The Adventures of Becky and Kathy. In today's story, we will show how the lack of wisdom or judgment part of naive interferes in health issues. But before we get to the story, let's go back to the introductions because we want to learn a little bit more about their families. Becky's family was made up of her dad, mom, her oldest brother, I think he was 9 or 10 years older, and her middle brother, Steve. I think he was about 6 years older than we were, and Becky. Here is a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Cochran. Lovely, lovely people. My family was made up of my mom and dad and 6 kids who were born about in the same 8 years. They were 3 brothers, a big sister, and a little sister. This is what we looked like at about that time. Lots of kids running around, a lot of hustle bustle in our household. Our parents were older than most of our friends' parents. When Becky and I were 7, my mom and her mom were already in their 40s. Our dads were pilots in World War II, and both of them stayed in over 20 years, and when they retired, my dad became an insurance salesman and her dad sold realty. Our mothers were raised with good manners to do things properly. More about our moms and dads later, but before we move into another story, I need to tell you a little bit more about her brothers. Her oldest brother wasn't around much, and he kind of scared me. He was never mean to me, but he kind of scared me. And he would call Becky sister. He'd say, "Sister, get over here." Steve was fun to be around, smart and a great sense of humor. He is in our next story. Steve had the coolest car ever, a green 1968 Ford Mustang GT Fastback. Now, if you're from my generation, you know what that car looks like. If you know no other car in the world, you know what that car looks like because it is the car Steve McQueen drove in the movie Bullitt. So, on to our next chapter. Chapter 4. Becky and Kathy learn about antiseptics. The first horse Becky owned was named Cochisa. She was boarded on a farm way up in the hills. Eventually, Becky's horse was boarded at Mr. Wyckoff's ranch, just up the street from us. I haven't told you we were raised in a small town in Northern California. It was named after the Vaca family, but strangers often called it Cowtown. Becky and I liked to go exploring. One of our favorite places was Mr. Wyckoff's ranch. To get through the barbed wire fences, we would pull the wire apart for the others to step through into the cattle fields. She in her red rain boots and I in my yellow ones. Here's a picture of Cochisa and our boots. Oh, mine are cut off, but I am wearing yellow rain boots. We were a little older than that when we went on this adventure through the barbed wire. Well, one day, Becky got a long barbed wire cut along the calf of her leg. Not bad enough to need stitches, but we knew a person could get a nasty infection from barbed wire, especially rusty barbed wire. So we rode our bikes to her house. Her parents weren't home. Steve was home. He said she needed to wash it and apply an antiseptic, but there were none in their house. So Steve drove us in his 1968 green GT Mustang Fastback to the Food Fair grocery store. He told us to get some antiseptic for the cut. We were perplexed about just what we were looking for and where to find it. Fortunately, a nice store employee asked if he could help us. And we said we needed antiseptic cleaner. So we purchased it and took it to Steve. He shook his head and drove us home with our antibacterial toilet bowl cleaner. Thank you for joining me for another chapter of the adventures of Becky and Kathy. Please follow, like, or share if you liked it. And join me next time as we celebrate more friendship. Remember to be a good, loyal friend, because the adventures last a lifetime.